Wake up, smell the coffee. Wake up, smell the coffee. Wake up, smell the coffee. Wake up, smell the coffee.
I've been in politics for probably 18 years now, and I came from the conservative movement. I worked for President Bush in 1992, made my way up in the Georgia Republican Party, was a party chair, candidate for Congress, and a nominee in a very conservative district, had Newt Gingrich, Bob Dole campaigning. So I was your pretty much typical Tea Party type member, get the government off our backs, out of our lives, be responsible, those types of things. And I left the Republican Party in 2001, went to the convention and walked out because it was such a manipulated, controlled experience that my voice was not heard, neither was any members of the party. It was essentially talking points that were scripted. So that's when my disillusionment with the party system happened, and I began saying, okay, what are we going to do about this given the mounting trends in this country after 9/11, and so I said, we got to build some bridges, and I can't hate liberals anymore. I got to figure out what the value is in the liberal point of view, and to talk across divides and listen deeply and be curious in search of creativity and solutions as opposed to simply what we're used to. In Latin, it's called divide et imperia. It's an old political strategy called divide and conquer. It's a bipartisan strategy, keep the insiders working together, conflicted with each other, and everybody else, the millions of American people, as simply spectators like in a football game between the red team and the blue team. And so therefore we end up being in the role of spectators but also children, waiting for the parents to decide. And that's, to me, undignified. It's extremely undignified. And so the strategy that I have been pursuing is, first of all, I got leaders together of Move On and Christian Coalition and Americans for Tax Reform and American Legion. And I sat them down in a room for 4 days, and they talked, and they said, wow, we got all these things in common. And we'd like to work on the environment or election integrity. There's one that everybody, I'm talking left, right, center, far extremes, we got to work on election integrity. We can't verify our elections. And they left the conferences and they went home and they continued their old behavior of dividing and conquering. So 3 years ago, I left that process. I started working grassroots and said, okay, we got to work in a community. We got to create an example of what it looks like for real libertarians, real Greens, real conservatives, real liberals sitting in the room. And we're now 27 meetings into a prototype in Seattle, Washington, of a transpartisan dialogue, that when you look around the circle, you've got it all. And this has been proven, and we've actually proven it in an experiment in Ashland, Oregon a couple years ago, that when you get 12 adult, self-governing, responsible citizens, and you look around the circle and they're a microcosm. You can't say they're a bunch of liberals, they're not a bunch of conservatives, they're everybody. And when they come up with ideas and solutions that are more or less, I use the benchmark 80%. 80% of us say yes. That becomes a powerful attractor, and then citizens feel, I've got a role, I've got value. And right now, citizens have no more value than to go and vote in an election system that we can't even verify. When I ran for Congress, and I used to sit with my congressional delegation at the Capitol Hill Club, the GOP headquarters, and there would be Democratic lobbyists sitting there, and they'd be wearing their suspenders with their donkeys on them, and this is in the Republican headquarters. And I was like, this is interesting. They were buddies. But then they'd put their coats on, they'd go outside in front of the media or whatever, and they'd get in this battle. And so I saw the lack of integrity there, and then I started looking deeper, and I would see that back in my district, some of the banks, some of their boards supported me, some of their boards supported my opponent. And I said, wait a minute, what's going on here?
If you take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
And so, after reflecting on my experience now, at that time a decade in politics, being very naive about the fact that I was on the right team, realizing that there was some sort of larger picture going on here, I got very disillusioned, actually very angry. And I think a lot of people are waking up to the fact that this is really, in some ways, it's a game. It's a very structured game. And so we need to wake up to that, tell the truth about it, and then say, what do we do as adult citizens? Then this is the key, because most citizens get their 3 minutes in front of the city council as children. Please listen to me. And they get on their knees and they beg the mayor or the city council, please listen to me. Or the congressman that comes to town, and then they say, well, thank you for your input, and they dismiss them. And we have to change that. The crises are too big now. We need the brilliant power, the brilliant creativity. And conservatives are great business people. I'm a former military officer. They know how to get things done. Liberals are incredibly creative, and they have a respect for the environment. And when you put the yin and the yang, the peanut butter and the jelly together, when you put the father's values and the mother's values, what George Lakoff would call, together, what do you get? You get a healthy family. You get things like, okay, I'm listening to your solutions, you're listening to my solutions. We're from a little bit different tribes, but when you put them together, all of a sudden there's a creative spark. And we don't have that anymore in our Congress. We've got this game. And so to navigate national security, terrorism, to navigate health crises, to navigate environmental crises, to navigate financial crises, especially when you have multiple crises, you damn well better include the American people. And they've got to stop being children and spectators. If the American people are fighting like children, like you liberals don't love your country and you conservatives, are mean warmongers, if you keep that argument going, then nothing ever really gets decided, and then people behind the scenes can decide. And I had glimpses of those in my run for Congress and raising money from very wealthy people, extremely wealthy people whose families funded both sides, I found out. Banks whose boards funded both sides. So I just looked back and common sense said that this is not what we think it is.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
It's empowering to know the truth. But if you're hypnotized in a game, if you think the red team or the blue team this year or next year is going to win and your guys are going to get in and the world's going to change, it's kind of like the old Peanuts cartoon of Lucy holding the football. And Charlie Brown would get all ready. He goes, you're going to pull the football away. You're going to disappoint me. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. And he runs up to kick the football, and she pulls the football away. And that's what happens every 2 years. We think we're going to get the change. We think that our guys are going to get in and we're going to shrink the government if you're a conservative, or we're going to save the environment if you're a liberal. But the football gets pulled away every 2 years. And it's because what I call the game controllers. The rank lower than a citizen is a subject. The rank lower than a subject is a slave. To be a serious citizen is to take responsibility for the office that you hold as the holder of power in your country. And if you abdicate that power, you become a subject. And then eventually you would become a slave if you follow that trajectory. So a serious citizen takes responsibility for self-governing, governing themselves, getting together with their neighbors, coming up with solutions. And if you do that in a wide enough scale, if you come up with quality solutions that are breakthroughs that work for 80+% of people, if you come up with solutions that liberals, conservatives, independents, Greens can all say yes to, that becomes attractive, it becomes powerful. And then when you promote those and popularize those, politicians, they can't ignore it.
Ooh, yeah. From every mountainside, let free